Hello, everyone. My name is Brendan Marr. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And welcome to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. Today will be a brief podcast discussing Star Wars and the plan. Oh boy, I use those words. So let me explain what I mean. In recent years, there is a term that many Star Wars pundits have been using called the plan. And much discussion as to whether Disney/Lucasfilm had a plan as to the sequel trilogy. Now, while no one has officially said anything, it is likely that there was little in the way of a plan as to the direction of this trilogy. The idea is that it does not seem likely that there was a plan for the trilogy, a planned out trilogy. Now, I have mentioned on my podcast before that I push back against the idea of a plan because of two reasons. One, the original trilogy had no plan, as much as George Lucas might claim otherwise. And number two, we don't really know what the creators are thinking in the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Now, I do not want to put on my tinfoil hat and try to guess what the creators were thinking in some conspiracy theory kind of way. Because honestly, I don't know. It seems likely that there was not a plan as to what would happen in this trilogy, and that a lot of the decisions were made by individual creators in each film, doing whatever they felt was right for the story. Now, what I would like to say today is that while Star Wars does not need a plan per se, it could use a planner. Now, we can't change the last 5 Disney-era Star Wars movies, so there is no point in discussing what they should or should not have done. But there is a point that can be made about the need for a planner. Someone to be the guiding voice of the new films. And a guiding hand, kind of like a George Lucas. George Lucas was the guiding hand of the original trilogy. Even though he did not direct The Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, he was heavily involved guiding the story, and the same being with the prequels. Though in the prequels, he was a one-man show in terms of creation. So they need a figure like that now, I think, going forward. And who is that person? Well, we'll discuss that in a minute. Now, one example, I think, of where it shows that a plan might have been lacking was the appearance of Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker. Now, I think, in retrospect, the only thing that I wish had been in the sequel trilogy was the sense of foreshadowing of Palpatine's return, or foreshadowing larger someone behind the throne, foreshadowing that Snoke was a puppet. Now, if, and like I said, we don't know, if it was never planned that Palpatine would return, then obviously there could not have been any foreshadowing, as no one knew it was coming, and it wasn't planned from the beginning. There have been a few claims that Palpatine was always kind of in the cards, so to speak. But I think it could have used a little bit more build-up to his return. And if I had to guess, and like I said, I don't like guessing, I think two things. One, killing off Snoke, and two, the desire to redeem Kylo Ren meant that the creative forces behind the movies had to scramble to come up with a villain to take Snoke's place because they did not want Kylo Ren to be the big bad, since they've planned on his redemption. Okay, now, like I said, I don't really know. I'm just guessing. That is one example, I think, where the pieces don't quite fit. However, things like the dyad, introduced in The Rise of Skywalker, recontextualizes the entire trilogy and makes all the pieces fit together so nicely. I've done a few podcasts on this very topic, so I won't get into it now, but I think that you should check those ones out. Because I believe the dyad makes everything make more sense when it comes to Rey and the Force. Okay, so those are a couple of thoughts on what does add up, what doesn't add up, and the notion of a plan. And the need for a planner so that in the future the movies feel more cohesive. Now, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, I'm going to give you my thoughts on who should be that guiding hand. See you in a moment after this word from our sponsor. Hello there, this is Brennan Marr, host of Page Turners They Were Not, a Star Wars podcast. And I'm here to tell you about Anchor. Anchor is the best way to make a podcast. Why is that? Well, first off, it's free. Yes, you heard me right. Anchor is free. Anchor has all the tools you need to make a podcast from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you on various platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can make money from the podcast. And get this, with no minimum listenership. That means you can make money even if no one listens to your podcast. That, of course, is not ideal, as Anchor will allow you to spread your podcast, bring in more viewers, and you can make more money because of it. Everything you need to make a podcast is in one place on Anchor. If you're interested, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you, and may the force be with you. Okay, and that was a word about Anchor. Also, by the way, my friends, today is Blackout Tuesday in honor of the current situation. And so just reminding you to please get involved in some way that you can in this current situation. So hashtag Blackout Tuesday. Okay, let me tell you who I think should be the planner. Now, the president of Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, I do not believe is that person. In fact, and this is no disrespect to Kathleen Kennedy, I don't think that being the executive of a company is where she should be. I think she should go back to producing, because she is one of the greatest producers of all time. But I don't think she's really that experienced as an executive. But like I said, I don't really know the behind-the-scenes story of what's going on. But I definitely do not believe that she is the right person to be the planner. Now, who should be the planner? Well, they need a George Lucas analog. Perhaps not someone with as much unlimited power as George Lucas, but someone of that vein. Lucasfilm has such a person that I would like to propose, and that is Dave Filoni. Now, who is Dave Filoni, you might ask, if you are not familiar with him? He is the bigwig who's been in charge of Lucasfilm Animation in terms of Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and is now heavily involved with The Mandalorian, working alongside his buddy Jon Favreau. Now, Favreau might also be someone who could be a planner, but Filoni, being the Padawan, so to speak, of George Lucas, would make a good choice. Now, let me be clear. I do not think Dave Filoni should become president of Lucasfilm. He has no experience as an executive. Also, I do not believe he should direct Star Wars movies, because animation is very different than live action, and he's directed a lot of animation. And the 2 episodes of The Mandalorian that he directed were kind of considered by a lot of fans the quote-unquote worst episodes. And that, to be fair, is still a compliment, because I don't think any episodes were bad of season 1. And I think Filoni demonstrated that his directing is still... He's got a long way to go before he's really mastered it. Not to mention, episode 5 of The Mandalorian, which he wrote and directed, a lot of fans did not like. And so I don't think he should be a director. But what I think he should be is be put in a position where he is the guiding hand behind the Star Wars films, as well as the live-action series, which, let's face it, are basically movies. I think that's where he should be. And I think he should be the story guy, so to speak. I don't think he should necessarily write the screenplays, but he should be the story by guy. Story by Dave Filoni, screenplay and direction by somebody else. But nonetheless, Dave's knowledge of Star Wars is second to none. And his ability to guide... Oh, pardon me a moment, folks. Sorry, I got a phone call during this. That is very unprofessional of me, so I apologize. I should have turned my phone off. Okay, as I was saying, Dave has demonstrated with the Clone Wars and with Rebels that he has the ability to plan for the long term, tying things neatly together, making a lot of it feel very cohesive. A cohesion that might be lacking in the current Star Wars films. I say might be because I don't entirely agree that they feel disjointed. I don't agree entirely. A few things, yes. And that is why I think they need a planner. I think Dave Filoni could be that person. He's certainly not the only person who could be in that. But they need someone with a guiding vision. They don't need to set everything in stone for a story because, let's be fair, the idea of Vader being Luke's father was not George Lucas's original intention. That came organically during the creative process. So I think what they need is a bare bones plan that can be fleshed out as they go along. But they need to have a basic idea of where they're going. And I believe Dave Filoni might be the right guy for the job. Okay, my name is Brendan Mark. That noise you're hearing is my ventilator. And thank you for tuning in to Page Turners They Were Not My Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.